Hello and welcome, everyone. We'll just give one more minute for the attendees to join. Hi there. Hi there, Glenn. Hello, Petros. We're just gonna give one more minute. I still see participant numbers increasing, and we'll kick off in a second.
Triple digits now.
Yeah, triple digits. Okay, hello and welcome, everyone. So are you ready for a move to Google Analytics 4? If you're currently using Google Universal Analytics and are wondering about the implications of its sunset, then this webinar is definitely for you. During this webinar, we will highlight several issues that you will encounter with historical web analytics data when moving to Google Analytics 4, and we will suggest solutions how to overcome them. Now, this webinar will be recorded as well. We will send the recording and some other useful materials to all the registrants in the next few days after the webinar. And we will also have a Q&A session at the end, but feel free to submit your questions at any time throughout this webinar. And some information about the speakers as well. So my name is Linas Žemaitis. I'm VP of Marketing here at Watergraph, and I have over 10 years of experience in digital marketing and web analytics. And joining me is Laurinas Arminas, who is our user researcher. So for the last 5 years, Laurinas has been helping digital marketing agencies and businesses to simplify and visualize their metrics. You just seen Laurinas raise hand there. And also joining me too is Karolis Malinauskas, who is our product manager. Being in Watergraph for 2 years helped Karolis to understand what challenges with data users might have. And now when GA Sunset is coming, he will introduce you a way how you could avoid losing historical Google Analytics data, and also the data in Google Analytics 4, and visualize it without specific data warehouse knowledge. So I hope that'll be exciting presentation for all of you. And what makes us qualified to talk about the subject? Watergraph is a platform which helps to connect, visualize, and share marketing data. We have integrations with over 40 data sources, and also provide data export and data transfer to Google BigQuery. We have over 1,000 customers that use Google Analytics. So we do know a bit about the subject and the challenges that everyone is facing with the migration. And before diving into our presentation, let's start with the poll. You should see it appearing in the middle of your screen in just a moment. Let me launch it. The question is, are you planning to move to Google Analytics 4 after the sunset of Universal Analytics? And the options are yes, we'll be using Google Analytics 4. No, we'll be using a different tool, and you can specify in the chat which tool you're planning to choose, or if you're not sure yet. And I still see some folks are answering, and we'll give it one more minute, still see answers popping up. And we're going to end the poll. Okay, so to share the results with everyone, 91% of you answered that yes, you will be using Google Analytics 4. So once again, no, I'm not entirely surprised, but stay tuned, and we will highlight some of the implications to your data if you're going to use Google Analytics 4 specifically as well. And 8% are not sure yet. So that's super interesting, but probably not surprising. And I'm going to hand over to my colleague Laurinas now, who is going to cover a bit about the sunset itself. And yes, Glenn, term sunset has become a bit of an interesting word indeed. many users really liked Universal Analytics, and they know quite a lot are not thrilled with Google Analytics 4, but we'll let Laurinas talk a bit about what does the sunset mean for all of you.
Hey, thanks to everyone. So as Glenn has mentioned, obviously, we had quite a negative twist on Google Analytics 4. And quite interestingly, actually, in the last 12 months, we heard sunset and analytics being used in the same sentence a lot. So essentially what this means is that universal analytics, as we know them, is going away. And this process, luckily, is going to take place in gradual steps. And we have to prepare for this process. So this is not going to happen overnight. So what I thought you guys might benefit from, and I want to note that I'm aware that some of you might be more familiar with this topic and than others, but just let's start from the basics. So basically, as of March of this year, Google Analytics will start creating GA4 properties on your behalf. But at the same time, do you really want to make sure that so basically, do you want to rely on Google doing the entire job for you? So they will be migrating the conversions, the goals, custom segments. So you might want to actually make sure that this transition is done correctly, thoroughly, and it might require some manual input from you. And most importantly, as of July 1st of this year, the Universal Analytics properties will stop collecting data altogether. So you have to make sure that until this day, you have GA4 set up. So Google might do it for you, but just make sure that they set it up correctly and everything is populating with data. And then December of this calendar year is exactly the time where the historical data for Google Analytics, Universal Analytics GA3 as we know them, that is when the data will be deleted. So despite the fact there's still some time until December of this calendar year, we urge you to take action now as soon as possible, just to make sure that you preserve the data, because in other way, the data will be gone forever if you don't move it until December of this year. So we highly encourage you to consider this approach way in advance, simply because it might be a longer process than just a couple of days to move that data from Universal Analytics J3 to make sure you can use it alongside your GA4 analytics. So if we move on.
Yeah, and I've just seen Laura raise the question, these dates are only for free customers. Yes, I think if you have a premium Google Analytics account, you may have a bit more time, but still, we would encourage to act now and not push the matters for a last minute.
Yeah, and basically also, even for 360 customers, Google might change their plans, and that has happened in the past with some of the deadlines they have set. So if there is a chance, if there's any risks, we suggest taking this approach just to be on the safe side. And to follow up, so with hearing Google Analytics and sunset a lot in the same sentence, there's obviously quite a lot of things that are slightly different. So what I did is a bit of reading, and from my experience, I decided to just draw 7 different bullet points about how these two are actually different. So starting from account hierarchy. So GA4 consists of accounts, properties, and individual views as they were known. They're no longer there. So Google Analytics took a more simplistic approach. So if you need to do filtering, known as views before, they will now be known as individual data streams. Then second is different in metrics calculations. So funny thing is, if we take some metrics like sessions, for GA3 and GA4, they might be slightly different. This same applies to bounce rate, engagement rate, and some other metrics. And these are just a couple of examples, but basically they have different definitions for some of those. And some might argue that the new definitions are more accurate in a way. Then we have data retention period. So this is a very important point. For GA4, the data retention is only going to be for 14 months, meaning in the future, if you want to access dates that are older than 14 months, you can't really do that without storing your data somewhere, like a data warehouse. And for that reason, Google also introduced export capabilities to BigQuery Data Warehouse, where the data can be stored. So I would like to put an emphasis on that point. So to store the data in BigQuery, you need to have an account there, but they also have free tiers available. Carlos and I will explain a bit later how the details would work, but those free tiers basically are available if you don't deal with very high volumes of data. And then number 5, we have website interactions, which are treated as events. For GA3, it used to be hits, but now you can get a bit more granular with the actions people take on your website and then attribute different properties to them and so on. You've also got app tracking in the same property. So they used to be 2 different views, but now you can store them and analyze them in one place. And 7th point is a bit more controversial. I won't go into too much detail, but as far as Google officially states, the way how it stores and deals with user data is more secure than its counterpart. So GA4 is more superior in terms of data security. And if we were to consider what is required for you to make a smooth transition from GA3 to GA4 to make sure nothing gets lost, what Google has done is they prepared a structured list of steps that you might want to take just to make sure everything is intact. So these first 6 steps are split into different effort levels, but they all depend on the complexity of your website setup. So you might want to go through them to see if everything is correct. And then if we move on to the next slide, there's a couple of additional steps for advertisers. So also consider those if you want to make sure your conversions, your custom segments, and so on are set up as they should. And I think Linus now has another poll prepared, right?
Absolutely. And I just see a couple of questions. Yes, we can also share the copy of a presentation deck for sure. And before we jump into another important part of our presentation, I think interesting part to ask the audience would be, have you looked into any solutions for storing your Universal Analytics and Google Analytics 4 yet? And if yes, I think feel free to specify which ones in the chat, if you'd like. Okay, I still see some folks are answering. Okay, and we can end the poll. So it's interesting also that 87% of the participants have not looked into any solutions for storing the data yet, and 13 have. And yes, I see Stan mentioned BigQuery in the comments. So yes, that's one of the most popular solutions for that. So if you have not looked into any solutions for storing your data, which most of you haven't, well, stay tuned for the next part of the presentation. I think that will be very interesting for all of you.
Yes, so now the exciting part, because for those of you who are not sure what data warehousing solutions use, we have one to suggest. But before we do that, let's look into why you might want to consider data warehousing as a solution. So we won't go into too many details here, but this is especially relevant to save the data if you're doing any of the following things. If you are creating reports with year-on-year performance, so whether you're doing it now, whether you're doing it for the future, you have to remember that you might want to compare a certain month to the month in the previous year. So essentially that means with the transition from GA3 to GA4, that as of now, the data will be in different places. Part of it will be with GA4, part of it will be with GA3, but also in addition, you might want to consider data warehousing because of the GA4 retention limitation of only 14 months. So in addition to actually preserving Google Analytics universal data, you might want to overcome the retention limits with GA4. Then also, if you are doing a bit of experimentation, so I know a lot of agencies, businesses do that, and you want to see, for example, a specific campaign that took place and how users interacted with your website 3 years ago exactly. So just to make sure you still have access to the data, you have to store it somewhere and save it before you do those ad hoc requests. And also, I saw that Glenn mentioned that it might be a bit of a lie from Google's side with the security things. But as far as data security concerns go, let's say you can actually export the data and be the owner of the data, whether that be inside Google or somewhere completely separate. And if we move on to a potential solution or solutions that I might want to suggest, so we have the first part, and that is the one I emphasized, and that's the one I currently believe in, because we had quite a bit of experience in the last couple of months just working with the data. And what BigQuery Data Warehouse allows you to do is push the data from Google Universal Analytics directly into BigQuery Warehouse, and Watergraph can help us here do that with very low effort as well. And then we can later then visualize the data inside Watergraph, and my colleague Carlos will later show practical examples of how that can be done. So the only thing in mind to keep here that I mentioned before, you need a BigQuery account, but the setup for the account can be done in just a couple of minutes. And I will cover more details about BigQuery in just a second. Then the second option is export data via Google Analytics directly. So this is a very low effort solution. You can go into Google Analytics, go into behavior overview and export options, and then you'll see CSV, Google Sheets, and a couple of more. But there's a couple of drawbacks with this method, although it seems simple. So if you want to work with that data, you will still need to upload it somewhere to make to put it into a workable format. But also, you might run into issues of data sampling. So if you're dealing with a lot of data, and additionally, you'll be limited to 5,000 rows export limit, which you can't really overcome with standard Universal Analytics right now. And then the third option is export data via Watergraph. So if you have a Watergraph account, what you can do for Google Analytics, you can use Excel export option for entire report or CSV for individual table widgets. Then the export compared to Google Direct download would have some type of structure, and data sampling would no longer be an issue. But we still suggest going the BigQuery route because it gives you more flexibility. And then obviously the low effort solution, but it means you can't really work with the data, is just download the reports as PDFs. And finally, benefits of BigQuery as a data warehouse. So if we move on to the next slide, we can dive deeper into BigQuery as an option. So aside from the aforementioned benefits of preserving your data from Universal Analytics, we have more use cases that can be relevant for you. So GA4, as mentioned, retains data for 14 months. So if you want anything older, the best option is for you to use BigQuery or different data warehouse. But the sooner you set the transition up, the more data you will manage to preserve from this point onwards. Additionally, API reporting tools run into a limitation of API call quotas that can be exceeded when requesting a lot of data for large time periods repetitively. So I know a lot of agencies and businesses with big websites do fall into those limits. And also you might face some data sampling problems. But once the data is inside BigQuery, those are no longer an issue. And also having the data inside the warehouse allows you to aggregate it or run any more complex calculations to drive your business decisions. There's a couple of more details, more technical things that it can help you with, specifically with GA4, such as save user-specific data from being deleted, having access to unsampled draw events, actually owning your data and manipulating GA4 data before visualizing, which might not be possible via the API directly. So just to recap everything that I've mentioned. So if you want, you can just revisit this slide, and it will have most important information for you. So Universal Analytics properties will stop collecting data on the 1st of July, 2023. Historical data for Universal Analytics properties, with an exception obviously for 360 clients, will be available for 6 months after the sunset only. And later, you might never get that data again if you didn't manage to save it. Then GA4 will have a data retention period of only 14 months. And GA4 exploration reports are subject to data sampling. So how can we overcome those things, and what do we need to do after this webinar if you really care about your analytics and your website? So first of all, make sure the new GA4 properties are set up correctly and have the new data coming in. And if you have time, you can make GA4 superior to its counterpart. It's just a matter of spending a bit more time, but we do understand how frustrating this change might be for you. Second is find an efficient way to migrate old data from Universal Analytics, known as GA3 or Universal Analytics. So we suggest giving WaterGraph a go, for example, and BigQuery warehousing a go to overcome that. And also overcome GA4 retention limits and sampling issues by using data warehouse, whether that be BigQuery or any other. And speaking about solutions, potential solutions, I'll give the mic back to Linas and Carlos, who will just explore more practical examples and show you how everything can be done.
Great. So I think I can take over, and I will quickly share the screen. 1 second. And I will show you how WaterGraph can help you to solve the problem related to Google Analytics Sunset. So here I'm showing you our WaterGraph app, what you will see when you log in. And I don't want to repeat things which Linas has already told. So I will show you how you can save your data from Google Analytics, which you will lose after, not right away after the sunset, but after some time. So to be safe, you can use WaterGraph, and will be helping you to solve this problem. So first thing, what you need to do with WaterGraph to connect the source from which you will want to save the data. So I will quickly show you how to do it. When you log into our app, you can go to Source Manager, select Google Analytics, and then just simply add the new source. So this is my account. I will be adding it, and from this account, I will select exact sources, which I will want to use in my data transfer function. Just 1 second, and it should load. And here it is. And I will select, for example, this one. And I will just connect the source. And that's it. So this is the source from which I will want to use to get data to. And I'm going to my data transfer function, which we have just launched. So for this reason, it's marked with beta version. So please have in mind that we are still working on it and improving it. So when you will press on this button, you will see option to get early access. If you will click on it, you will be able to book a demo call with me, and then I will explain you how it works. And then after that, if you will be interested, I can give you a free trial so you could test it out. Once you will be given a free trial, then after clicking this button, you will be landed to our data transfer function. So I have already connected the source, and second step, what I need to do, create a new transfer. I press on it, and here you have two options how you can connect your destination, so your BigQuery data warehouse. One is through simple OAuth connection, and another one is through manual service account. So I will use simple OAuth connection. I just press create an account, and again I need to connect my BigQuery WaterGraph, not WaterGraph, but the BigQuery data warehouse as a destination. the place where I will want to move a data. So please have in mind that with Watergraph, you will be moving data from your source, such as Google Analytics or GA4, to your data warehouse. So I'm selecting my BigQuery account to set it as a destination. So as you can see, this is my account. I select it, and in the second step, I need to select project to which I want to move the data. So I'll select this one, and then I will test the connection. If everything is fine and the data could be moved there, so it seems to be good. And then I'm moving on to the step where I need to select integration from which I want to move data. So as an example, I will show my Google Analytics integration, but as you can see, there are more integrations which I can use. So Google Analytics 4, and others from which I can move the data and store it in my data warehouse. So we can help you not only to store data from Google Analytics, but from other integrations too. But as an example, I will select the Google Analytics. This is my account, which I have just connected, and this is a source from which I will move data. I press save and continue. Now I need to give name for my transfer. So I will give it very simple, test 1, 2, 3. This name will appear in my transfers list, and then I will give a name to my destination dataset. So this dataset will appear in my Google BigQuery account with all the data which I will move. Other things is frequency. At the moment, the only frequency is daily, which means that data will be updated into your data warehouse every day. So this will be extremely important when you will be using Google Analytics 4, and you will not want to lose all your data after 14 months. So it might be quite complicated for you to update data every day and move it manually. So we're updating it to you every day, and it will be renewed in your data warehouse. Scheduling option, this means that the transfer will start right away. And another very important thing is data backfilling. So if you have been using Google Analytics for a few years or even more, you will want to get all of the data which you have, not only start collecting it from this moment, because that's the whole point. You don't want to lose all the historical data. So you select backfilling option, and then you can select exact date from when you want to move the data. So let's say I want to get data from January 1st of this year, but of course I can select data to the point when I have started collecting it. So if I have started collecting it in 2010, I can do that. And that's it. I press create transfer. I wait for a few seconds, and that's it. My transfer is set up, and I can check what I have here. So this is information about the transfer itself. I see who has scheduled it, which integration and which source is being used. And in transfer history, I can see information when the data will be in my data warehouse. It will be when all the green ticks will be in the fourth step. And I will also get an email with the notification that everything is ready, and I can go get back to my data warehouse and continue my work there. So this is the way how I can save all my historical data from Google Analytics and Google Analytics 4 to my data warehouse, so I would not lose it anymore. And another important step, which you might want to do, is to show that data to someone. And if you want to avoid writing complicated queries inside Google BigQuery, you can do that inside Watergraph. So I will just change the theme. And yeah, this is another our account. And here, as an example, I have created already a report with information from my BigQuery sources. So 1 second, I will just change, for example, I will change the data here, and yeah, I'll need to set up 1 second. I lost my source, which, okay, I'll get back to the sample data so it would be easier for you to see. 1 second, change to sample data. Yeah, and this is also sample data, but when you will be using your account, you will see real numbers here. So as an example here, you can see what happens when Google Analytics and Google Analytics 4 is being used. And here, okay, this is account. So for better understanding, I will show what I can do. I can select report type. I can select, sorry, there is no dimension. It should be here. Let's try another one. Sorry about that. Let's see this one, for example. So as you can see, I can select report type. I can select metric, dimension, and this is how my data will be appearing in a report. And I can get in the same widget, I can get data from my data warehouse and, for example, Google Analytics 4. Also, what I can do, I can have my Google Analytics 4 or Google Analytics integration connected just directly to the reporting. And if I don't want to use Google BigQuery Data Warehouse, I can either export widget to CSV file or go to export to Excel function, and that's it. I can have the data in pretty simple way stored in my Excel file, if that would be the way how I would like to do it. But as we have already suggested to you, Google BigQuery might be a better option. So yeah, those who will be interested, you can book a call with me, and I will show you how it works and give you a free trial to test it out. So that would be information from my side. Thank you for listening, and I will give back the word to Linas.
Yeah, thanks, Karolis, for showing the functionality in great detail. Just shows how easy it is to set up a data transfer once you have a data warehouse and visualize the data later, even blending it from several different sources. I am conscious that we got so many questions, so just please stay tuned. We will have a Q&A session at the very end of the presentation, which will be in a couple of minutes. So yeah, let me just get back to the slides, and let's another quick poll. So I still see, obviously, there is a lot of you still on the call, which is great, and we will have a Q&A session in a minute. But who would be interested in the free trial of Watergraph? And we'll just give, again, we will give at least 2 weeks of free trial to anyone who would be interested in the data transfer feature. And obviously, if you book a call with Karolis, he would help you to set that up and explain how it works, etc. Okay. Thank you for answering. And I think we will also be following up with all the registrants and attendees of this webinar. So we'll share the recording, and we will share some other useful materials. By the way, if you would like to do it straight away, request a free trial. I just shared, let me see, I just shared a link to Karolis' calendar to everyone. If you would like to request a free trial of Watergraph straight away, please feel free to book a call with Karolis here. Again, have a look at the chat, and you will see his link over there. And also, again, we have a lot of helpful material which we will share after the presentation, such as steps how to set up a BigQuery account. I know myself, BigQuery can sound a bit daunting if you have never done it, but really it is quite easy to set up the account and transfer the data there, and then using a no-code solution like Watergraph, potentially you could visualize the data easily. And also, I know that Google gives as well some free credits if you set up a data warehouse with them. I just shared a link to everyone as well on the chat. And yeah, we will share some useful material shortly, and the deck and recording of this presentation. So I think it's time for a Q&A, and we have received quite a lot of questions, so bear with us now. And yeah,
you've already answered the first one with the presentation deck.
Yeah, absolutely. We have answered the presentation deck. And I think we will answer Glenn's question. If you have a BigQuery, can you still use UX of GA4 to query and pull stuff back from a BigQuery account? Maybe Karolis, maybe you could answer that.
Yeah, I think Glenn might have in mind, and yet Glenn, you can write in a message if that's what exactly you had in mind. If you are moving data to BigQuery, if you can still create reports directly from GA4. So the answer is yes, you can do that. If you want, you can either create reports directly from GA4, also in Watergraph, or you can create reports with the data from BigQuery, also in Watergraph. The thing is that if you will want to compare longer periods of data, let's say you want to compare data of March 2023, March 2022, and March 2021, you will not be able to do that only with GA4. You will need to have the data somewhere stored, so BigQuery could help you here.
Sounds good. So hope that answered your question. And also another question by Glenn. GA uses modeling. Is that what is meant by data sampling? This means that basically Google will use machine learning to plug gaps in attribution. For a business person, that basically means that Google takes educated guess. In case of transactions, you might not ever find the transaction ID associated. Do you think that's true? So I think when we spoke about data sampling in the presentation, it simply means depending obviously how much data you are collecting with Google Analytics 4. If you select a long date range, you can encounter data sampling. So for example, for watergraph.com, if I select, we have GA4 property, and if we select a date range more than 6 months, the data gets sampled. So that means that it starts to be based from a certain sample, and it's not 100% accurate. And by moving data to data warehouse, you could look up, say, a year of data without getting sampled. But if you have a big website with tons of hits, perhaps the sampling would kick in a lot sooner. I know that Universal Analytics, I cannot select more than 2 weeks of data. For example, on watergraph.com, apply segment, and without sampling kicking in. So I think that's what we meant. If all your data in data warehouse, you can select any amounts of data and visualize it and ensure that it's 100% right, and it's not based on maybe a 50% sample. I hope that makes sense. Maybe Karolis or Laurinas, would you like to add anything?
No, I think it makes sense. And as we have quite a few other questions, we can tackle those as well. But thanks for that, Linus. Perhaps one question that I would prioritize that I saw just in the chat, where Nathan says that he's a bit confused because we keep saying that you lose data after 14 months. And he mentions that it's only for the explorations feature. But at the same time, despite the fact you might get some aggregate metrics, the entire idea of GA4 being event-based is that those events can be attributed to specific properties and users. And as far as, let's say, the agencies that we have dealt with and businesses they have as clients, they rely on that data related to attributes and specific user data to make business-driven decisions. And in their instance, that's an absolutely crucial thing for them to have, as aggregate metrics in general would not provide the full picture for them. So Carlos, Linus, maybe you have anything to add to that topic as well?
All good. We can move on. And yeah, Linus, you can continue if you want.
Sure. Could we export BigQuery first before we decide to use Watergraph? I think Eric asked that question. So I think there are several parts to this. Watergraph has a data transfer feature, and then Watergraph has a the visualization feature. So I think if you're going to use Watergraph to transfer the data, then yes, you could still use the data transfer before using the visualization or going with the, say, full plan of Watergraph. Again, there are more ways how you could potentially get that data into data warehouse, but the benefit of Watergraph of how easy it is for you to do it. Again, it's a no-code solution. So I'm not sure if Carlos or Laurinas would like to add anything there.
Yeah, just to add to that. So obviously with GA4 to BigQuery, you have some options, alternatives. But if we're talking about moving data and saving it from Universal Analytics to BigQuery, then it would require that solution in the middle, as the direct transportation of that data is not possible. So Watergraph or other alternatives, as you mentioned, to export it.
Sure. And LeMay asked if Watergraph services end, would data still be retained and usable in BigQuery? And I think the answer to that is yes. It's any data that you transfer to BigQuery is there, is going to stay there as long as you keep using BigQuery. So yeah, it's certainly Watergraph. If you stop using Watergraph, the data will certainly not disappear. And the second follow-up question, will you be providing pricing for this add-on retention module? I'm not quite sure what was meant here, but I assume will we be providing pricing for this data transfer module? And the answer will be yes. We will start with the fixed pricing. So many data transfer tools on the market have very complicated usage-based pricing. We will start with the simple pricing, perhaps even from 100 euros per transfer. So it will certainly be very cost effective and will not have any sort of hidden fees. But we do offer a free trial first for anyone who would like to test it. And it's an interesting question for Anonymous at is BigQuery paid or free? So I think as we discussed, it's a paid feature, but we do offer some free credits and makes it easy for you to set it up. And let's see, a lot of questions. So Pierre asked, so the next step is basically to pull the data from BigQuery and to transfer it into Watergraph as a way to visualize the data. Once this is done, the data is protected from being deleted in December. Yes, so that's exactly that. So once you transfer, even today, you can transfer all your Universal Analytics data into the data warehouse. And even then Google Universal Analytics will stop collecting hits in July. You can set up a final transfer then, and even if a data is deleted in December, it will be still in your data warehouse. So that's the whole solution. I think what we are proposing, that if you want to keep your data safe for future and safeguard your data, you should store it in a data warehouse. And I'm just trying to be selective here because I'm not sure if we'll be able to answer absolutely all of the questions live. Maybe Karolis, you could write your email in the chat for everyone. I think feel free to contact Karolis in case we won't be able to answer all your questions.
Oh, Linus, I would like to prioritize one question, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
So it's John's question. John mentions that they're an agency that manages several analytics accounts, and they have quite a few universal analytics sources on their Watergraph dashboards. And is there a limit on how many we can transfer to BigQuery? So currently we have no hard limit at all. So obviously, once it gets to the pricing, then we can discuss potentially. But I do have a suggestion. If you have a chance just to test this out and just go into data transfer and message Karolis, you can set up the migration for a couple to start with and then see how it goes. And then we can discuss potential options from there.
Also, we might answer to Ingrid's question because she has written 2 times the same question. So I think it would be good to provide answers. So in Norway, Analytics 4 might be illegal because it's in conflict with GDPR. We are not sure what other options we should look at, but integration with Watergraph that we already use. Thanks for that. And would be essential in Watergraph. Are there any integrations to similar options to Analytics 4, Universal Analytics? So at the moment, we have Google Analytics and Google Analytics 4, but if you would need any specific integration, please feel free to reach out to us, and then we can speak about some kind of custom-made solution for you. Also, we have custom API through which you can get all the data if you don't see integration in the integrations list. And still, if you would be moving data to Google BigQuery, the thing is that you could still get, you would not need to use GA4 anymore for reporting. And you could get data into reports directly from BigQuery also. That might be also interesting for you to consider. But yeah, please feel free to reach out to us. At the moment, we don't have a direct alternative for Google Analytics or Google Analytics 4, but we might find some kind of solution for you. So yeah, and maybe Linus, you want to continue?
Yeah, sure. And I think interesting question from Steffi. Can you make a global report comparing different Universal Analytics and GA4 and Watergraph? And I think the answer to that is definitely yes. And that's one of the advantage if you're going to store both Universal Analytics and Google Analytics for data in a data warehouse, when like BigQuery, when you can join the data and visualize it and with a solution like Watergraph, for example, which allows blending the data easily from multiple data sources. And I'm not sure, Karolis, if you would like to add anything there.
I think you have already answered the question. So in short, yeah.
And we will also provide templates, which will make it really easy to do as well. How much is Watergraph? So I think we do have pricing on our website, and really it's based on our reporting product is based on sources. So the more data sources you have, the more it costs. But we also provide discounts at a very high number of sources as well. So it starts from normally 200, but if you're just interested in a data transfer feature, I think we will start with pricing from 100. I think if you're just interested in the data transfer, but feel free also to set up a free trial as well. We'll offer that to everyone. And I see Michael ask, do we need a BigQuery and Watergraph accounts to achieve this, or can we go directly from GA4 to Watergraph? So I think something to highlight here is Watergraph is a marketing platform which helps to connect, visualize, and share data. So it connects with data from different sources. It does not collect the data for you. So it's not like Google Analytics, which actually collects the data. Or it's not a web analytics platform. It's more of a reporting and visualization and a transfer platform. So no, I don't think Watergraph can be a substitute to Google Analytics 3 or 4. But if you're going to start using Google Analytics 4 and store the data in data warehouse, then Watergraph will certainly make it easy to visualize it. In my opinion, it's a lot easier to visualize the data in Watergraph and Google Analytics 4 itself. And if you store all your data, then you could also look up more than 14 months from a data warehouse. And I see Jacqueline asked, how can we know in Universal Analytics the amount of data that we have and should expect to store? Maybe Karolis could answer that.
If you have in mind from which day exactly you have started collecting data, then you can just simply either check it inside Google Analytics to try go back in time as possible, or you can also connect your GA accounts to Watergraph and try to set a date range from the past and see how far you can go with the data. And if you are speaking about amount of data like in megabytes or gigabytes, so then you can just try to, let's say, move amount of data of 1 month and see how much of data you have it in BigQuery for that 1 month, and then you can predict that something around amount of data would be for each month. And from the data range, you can see from how far from the past you have collected the data. So I hope that's answered the question. And also, I saw that Steffi wrote that let's schedule a call for global report, I guess, when you have your previous question. So I see that you have already booked a call with me. So thanks, and we can get in touch with you and speak about that, Steffi.
Okay, and I think we pretty much answered all the questions. If we missed some of them, feel free to message Karolis, or also feel free to connect to any of us on LinkedIn as well. And yeah, we'll be sending the recording and some other useful material to everyone again. And thanks for your interest in obviously move to Google Analytics 4, data storage implications on Watergraph, and hope you have a great evening.
Thanks to everyone, and thanks to Linus for hosting this.
And bye.